John, can you give us the basics of email address internationalization?
Sure. For 30 years, we've had email where people can use ASCII addresses with unaccented letters. And for 10 or 15 years, we've had mail where people can put their own language in the body of the message and even on the subject line. And what EAI does is it sort of fills in that last gap so the email address itself can have letters in your own language, whether it be Russian or Chinese or Hindi or any of the other languages that people speak.
Okay, so any of the other languages, assuming I'm Russian and I'm using the Cyrillic alphabet, and I would like to subscribe to a newsletter, what will happen in the background?
It won't be very different from the way that things are now. What it mostly means is that whatever the provider of the newsletter has to be prepared for EAI and has to realize that email addresses that used to be just ASCII can now contain all sorts of other characters. So when a person enters the address, it needs to make sure that the web form or whatever it is allows them to enter Cyrillic and not just ASCII. And then when they validate it, they need to be able to check, this is a Cyrillic address, we know how to handle that, and we can store it in the database. And then once they've done that, then the processing beyond that is pretty much the same as it would be for conventional mail.
And assuming they do not have done that, what will I see as a user, as a Russian user?
Oh, you'll see some sort of error message.
Okay.
You see an error message and you'll say, well, this newsletter is not for me.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And how many people already use international email addresses, and what's the potential, you think?
Well, there's sort of two different questions. One is how many people currently have Cyrillic or Hindi addresses? And another question is how many people can write to them and receive mail from them. The number of people who actually have addresses in Thai and Hindi and stuff, at this point, it's pretty low because the technology is just getting mature this year. And, there are certainly thousands and maybe tens of thousands, but it's not a huge number. However, the number of people who can send to and receive from, for example, everybody who has an address at Gmail or any of the domains hosted by Gmail, they can receive mail from and send to EAI addresses, and everybody at Hotmail and Outlook, and some large systems in China. So, there's literally billions of people who can send to and receive from. So the potential is huge. Just as more people get EAI mail addresses, more people will be able to correspond with them.
Okay, so that's the advantages. What threats and challenges are related to email address internationalization, you think?
Well, I'll start with the challenges. And the main challenge is it requires people to change their email software that already works. Now, for a lot of people, that will already happen. Many of the large major mail software programs that people use both to receive mail and to send mail already have EAI available. So for like the open source program Exim, all you have to do is change your configuration and it can send and receive EAI mail. And for some of the commercial mail sending programs, it's the same thing, it's just a parameter change. So at that level, it's something to learn about email and learn about internationalized email and make sure that you have it set up to handle properly. The challenge more is just as you have to do a certain amount of work to keep your database clean, both to make sure you don't have duplicates, to make sure that people don't put in mail addresses intended to offend people, you'll have to do a little more of that. And it's a little harder with EAI. For example, if your address has like an A with an accent on it, it turns out there's two ways to write that, and you need to make sure that you treat them the same. It's not super hard, but it's just more work to be done. And there's also some more stuff with domain names. It's possible to use domain names with mixed character sets, like mixed Arabic and Chinese, which makes no sense. So you need to make sure not to allow that.
But as we speak, there are more and more internet users, right? And also those maybe third world countries in Asia are getting more and more access to the internet. So do you think it's going to be, the topic will be even getting more important in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Two countries I know about now is in India, where everybody has an Aadhaar identification card. Rajasthan, one of the larger states in India, is busy giving all of their Aadhaar users email addresses in Hindi so that the government can communicate with them. And of course, now that they have Hindi addresses, they can communicate with each other. And if you have an EAI mail system, you can communicate with them too. And I also was at a meeting last month talking to some women from Thailand, talking about what the Thai government is doing. And they said sort of the same thing. There's a lot of people in Thailand who can read and write Thai, but they can't read and write English, which is totally different from Thai. So they have Thai addresses, they can write to each other. And again, if you can handle Thai addresses, you can write to them too.
Okay, sounds very interesting. Thank you very much for the insights, John.
Glad to be here.